Mm-mm-mm. So, oh, man, I need to stretch more. Just got some more boxing news. Not so good news. Apparently, Leo Santa Cruz is officially, he put it on the Fight Hype video. I'll drop the link in the description. Leo Santa Cruz is going to move up to 130 in November. Um, no opponent, no date, but apparently early November or November, he's moving up to 130. He's going to be chasing a belt of some sort. Obviously, there's been rumors, especially early in the summer, about him potentially fighting Tank Davis in a title fight. Something I could see happening. You know, Steven Espinoza did say he did have some big. Who's the Showtime executive? Did mention that he had big news coming up for Showtime. Showtime hasn't had any big fights at all this year since the Pacquiao Barber fight, and that was like the first fight of the year. So um, obviously that would help pick up the pace because I think Showtime's probably going to be out of boxing not too distant future. And if the Zone, if they don't ever get it together, they're probably going to be out of the boxing business. Um, Back to topic, Leo Santa Cruz, he's moving up to 130. Reason why I say it's bad news is because he's not unifying with Gary Russell. You know, so it is what it is. It's an official, my opinion, official duck. You're moving up to 130 without cleaning out your division. Um, I've been consistent with that. You can have as many big fights as you want, but if you don't clear your division first, then you're leaving food on the table. Just like Mikey did versus Earl Spence, left the division, not fighting Lomachenko because he had past bitter feelings with Bob Arum in Top Rank. But now look at him. He has nowhere idea where he's fighting, whether it's at 140, 147. Who you gonna fight at 140? Who you gonna fight at 147? There's killers at 147. There's killers at 140. So now he's trapped. And probably making 135 at age 31 is probably a bit tough. You know, so now Leo Santa Cruz, he's going for his fourth world championship belt. Fourth division. Um, he's not a bad fighter. I actually think he can give Gary Russell a tough fight, but it seems like I have more faith in Leo Santa Cruz than Leo Santa Cruz and his team because they're the ones avoiding Gary Russell Jr. I do feel bad for Gary Russell Jr. I don't know why he's like one of the few PBC fighters that don't get any love. Charlos get love, Earl Spence gets love, Keith Thurman gets love, Tank gets love, you know, Jared Hurd gets a lot of love, but where's the love for Gary Russell? He's been part of the PBC train as long as any of those dudes, if not longer. I think he was there before the Charlos. Um, and they have not fed him any big fights, And I typically like PPC more times than not for majority of amongst the fighting companies. They're probably one of the better ones, but for Gary Russell, they haven't done really anything for him. The WBC, they make their mandatories, once every 9 months, and that's what Gary Russell's been doing. But he hasn't had a big fight in a long time, since Lomachenko. And that was when he was with Golden Boy and Richard Schaefer. So. Um, as far as Leo Santa Cruz is concerned, like I said, it's to me it's a duck move. If he fights Tank, it is what it is. I think Tank is just too big for Leo Santa Cruz. Leo Santa Cruz, he got okay power at 126. I don't know how it's gonna be at 130. So we'll see. Depends on who he fights at 130. I think if he doesn't fight Tank, he'll fight some type of you know. Past challenger or something at 130 and then fight Tank maybe early next year um, is my thinking. But we'll see what happens with that. I think Tank and I don't know if Tank is going to end up fighting Tevin Farmer. It looks like Tevin Farmer is leaning with fighting JoJo Diaz. That's a tough fight. Um, I don't know. JoJo's not a bad fighter. He actually gave Gary Russell a tough fight. Um, at least the first half of the fight, but then Gary Russell made the adjustment and then, did his thing in the second half. And actually, it's kind of what happened to Gary Russell when he fought Lomachenko. First half of the fight, it was competitive, pretty back and forth. Lomachenko was struggling with Gary Russell's speed, but once he got comfortable with not comfortable, but once he got Gary Russell's cadence in terms of Gary Russell throwing everything 100 miles an hour. He figured out his timing and kind of his rhythm a little bit. And then the second half, he took Gary Russell to school. But the first half was competitive. But the second half, once Lomachenko got a beat on him, he was able to beat him to the punch and take it from there. So that's kind of what happened with Gary Russell versus JoJo. The first half of the fight was pretty back and forth, pretty even keel. And then the second half, Gary Russell made the adjustment. Didn't let JoJo back him up as much. JoJo surprised me with his size at 126. He was bigger than I thought. Or maybe Garrett Russell's just smaller than I thought at 126. But JoJo moved up to 130 some time ago. He's not a bad fighter. I actually think he could beat Tevin Farmer. That's an interesting fight. But back to the Leo Santa Cruz, Garrett Russell situation. Like I said, it's disappointing that he's not fighting Gary Russell. He was eager to fight Carl Frampton. He was eager to fight Abner Mares, a former sparring partner. He fought Mares twice. He fought Carl Frampton twice. Why not fight Gary Russell? Gary Russell, he's the kind of like the new Rigondeaux. He's the new kind of avoided guy, and I don't know why. He has decent power, but I don't think he's Wilder. He has good. He might be the fastest boxer in the sport. You might have to give him that. He's a really good fighter, but I don't think he's invincible. He has been beaten before, so we'll just have to see what happens with that. But just disappointing that he's taking that route. But I guess it can't be too shocked. But yeah, I don't know what you guys think about Gary Russell, Leo Santa Cruz. Leo moving up to 130. Gary Russell, he's kind of stuck. What is he going to do at 126? Carl Frampton, he's, with Frank Warren and over them now. Scott Quigg, he's with Frank Warren, I'm pretty sure. So is Lee Selby. And Frank Warren works pretty heavy with Top Rank. Oscar Valdez, I think he's moving up. He's with Top Rank. JoJo's with Golden Boy. He's at 130. So there's not much really for Gary Russell on PBC at 126. Mares, he's recovering from his eye injury, so I don't even know if Mares will fight again. So I don't know what's going to happen with Gary Russell. Either he should move up or just, I don't know. Gary Russell's kind of stuck in the middle of a hard place. So, feel bad for the guy. So we'll see what happens with him in his career. He might want to think about, going to Top Rank, which for a black fighter, I typically wouldn't say that, but a lot of the big names are on that side. And even at 130, a lot of the top names are on that side. You got Jamel Herring, he's a WBO champ. Who else is on 130? JoJo, he's Golden Boy. Tevin Farmer, he's on the Zone. Tanks with PBC. Navarte, I think he's with Top Rank. He's the WBC champion at 130. So, no, Miguel Burchell, he's the WBC champ. So he's with Golden Boy. So, unless he can get a Tank fight, which I don't think that would happen. I think it's a good fight, battle of B-more. But I don't see TMT putting Tank with Gary Russell. Even though Tank might beat Gary Russell, but I don't see them putting him there. They're really, the fact that they're trying to fight Gamboa at this stage of Gamboa's career shows me they're not trying to put Tank in there with a deadly opponent yet. So that is what that is. Actually, that's not good either. But I don't know. It is what it is. But drop comments, like, subscribe, stay tuned, share the video. You guys take it easy.